So hello friends, comrades, Chaverim, that's Yiddish for friends, really. So hi, it's wonderful to be here. What a fantastic show of solidarity and strength yesterday. How many times have we seen strikes where the leadership have gone in and come out with a piece of paper saying that we've won, and perhaps the union has given in and have believed it, but the union was solid right the way across the board. What an incredible moment. And in actual fact have rejected the offer, so that is a wonderful moment. And then just as I was coming along the road, I had no idea, of course the picket line was there outside the old Deptford Town Hall, and buses, lorries, cars, all hooting. What a fantastic display. How many times again have we seen strikes in the past where the government has sometimes been successful in driving a wedge between different sectors of the economy, and when there's one group of workers out on strike saying that it's inconveniencing the public and that really they're privileged, or they've got enough money anyway, or something like that, and just think how easy it might have been to say, oh well, university lecturers, students, they're all in somewhere or another privileged, and meanwhile, you know, they're just about managing, and the left behinds, you know, they're the real victims in society. You know, the way in which quite often the ruling class like to suddenly discover that the left behinds are their heroes, even though they're the ones who've left them behind. But no, they don't seem to have succeeded in that either. I think back to how I got involved in politics, and one of my first memories of union life was my mother saying to me in 1958, I think I must have been, 12 or 13, and it was the London bus strike. A long and bitter strike of the London busmen in the Transport and General Workers Union, and my mother saying to me when I was moaning a little bit about having to walk a bit further to school or catch a lift off somebody, and she said, well, don't forget to take some money for the strike fund to the Harrowweald bus garage. And so I said, why would you do that? Oh well, all strikes have a strike fund, she said. They'll have a hardship fund, there'll be a bucket. So this was my mum telling me this. She said, there'll be a bucket, you take some money. So sure enough, in my grammar school uniform, I kind of gingerly went up to the bucket, and there was a bucket. She was dead right outside Harrowweald bus garage, and I dropped some money in, and I could see the busman at the time standing looking me up and down, thinking, what's a grammar school boy doing supporting us? And I put the money in, I didn't say anything, and then I went off and catch my lift home. So that was one memory, but also I found myself on the way here thinking of my father at the time. Well, actually both of them, they were in the NUT and fighting for equal pay. Some of you younger ones may not know that there was quite a long struggle by the NUT for equal pay, and they won it. But when, as you may know, when you win strikes and win pay settlements, you don't always get it all at the same time. So what happened was the government awarded this equal pay, but they said it's going to be stretched out over 7 years. So what used to happen was once a year, my mum would get, for 7 years, would get the increment. And she'd say, I've got the increment. And I can see her sitting there at the tea table when it comes through, and she's opened it up, and this is 3 years in, and she turns to us and says, boys, look, I'm 3/7 of your father. I'm 3/7, and he'd sit there shaking his head, killing himself laughing. He was in the NUT as well. He was a teacher. But actually, you know, you mentioned there that, you know, from being born and before, and this is quite true. One of the things that my father would often say whenever we talked about unions, he would mention his grandfather, or his Zayda in Yiddish, his grandfather, who came from Eastern Europe and had been in a union of Jewish workers called the Bund, and whenever unions were talked about when my father was a boy, so this is a man born in 1860, this man would say, what is a union? A union is a box of matches. It's a box of matches. 1 match, you break. 2 matches you break, 3 matches you break, whole box of matches, you don't break. That is a union. So I've always remembered that. Think of it, you're a box of matches. You're a box of matches and you didn't break, and so on. Just one thought, any strike at any time always means more than whatever it's about. So obviously this is about pensions, this is about unions, but it's always about more than that. And I found myself thinking about this whole way in which over the last 10, 20 years, the way in which the ruling order have used this thing called data, and they've used what they call evidence. And of course, we all like evidence. You know, those of us who are dialectical materialists, we love evidence. We go around looking for it. But how come they have been so successful in turning this data against us? And so I wrote a little thing that I thought I'd read to you. First, they said they needed data about the children to find out what they're learning. Then they said they needed data about the children to make sure they're learning. Then the children only learnt what could be turned into data. Then the children became data. So this is what they've managed to do. We say it was good to have data to find out what's going on, and then bit by bit we find they turn it against us. And we find that what they really want us only to do is that which can be turned into data, whether it's children, whether it's us, whether any section, and so on. And they genuinely, I think, now believe that if you cannot make and take data on something, it has no value. Whereas, you know, people as old as me, we've worked in sectors and worked in areas where quite often we've been quite keen that there isn't data on it. Whether it's in the creative arts, whether it's in the liberal arts, or whether it's in sitting thinking of working stuff out, and that we found that the kind of intervention of data is in some way or another obtrusive and prevents us from actually doing what we want to do. But interestingly, at the same time this has been going on, they've actually lost control. What was 2008 about? The bankers' crash. You know, they had been telling us for all of my life that they had all these subtle little instruments and levers. They could run the economy, they could squeeze inflation here, and they could do a wage control here, and that they could intervene somewhere or another in the production of profits or something. And the whole bloody thing collapsed, completely collapsed. I mean, think back to that moment. They didn't know what was going on. The whole of the Western world, America, Britain, Europe, the rest of it, they were panicking. It looked like the whole bloody thing was going down the pan. They lost control. At the moment, they think that they're collecting data and improving things and fine-tuning things. And then again, if you think of the climate and you think of the environment, they have lost control. They do not know what is going on. They know that things are getting worse. They haven't got the instruments to do anything about it because they don't believe fully in government intervention and planning and so on. So even as they're collecting all this data stuff, at the same time they're losing control. And in a way, I know it may seem a far thing from this strike, but in a way it seems to me that this strike is partly in this area, because what are they saying? They're saying, oh well, we don't really know what's going to happen to capitalism. Yeah, well, they're right, they don't. But whatever it is, we're collecting data and you can't have a decent deal. So in a way, this strike, though it may not be directly about that, it seems to me it's coming at a very key political moment where they're using data to oppress us even as they're losing control. Of course, we can ask the question, and it's the crucial one, who controls, who owns data? At the moment in society, we don't. Data is controlled by the giant of the technology people, the Zuckerbergs and the Gates, and indeed governments. They own and control data, and we don't. And merely by this strike, I say merely, but by asserting ourselves through this strike, we're actually making a comment about the data. I was just listening from you about the ways in which you're unpeeling the ways in which they've predicted or not predicted what is going to happen and why you can't have any, right? That's because they're saying we own and control the data. By asserting ourselves through the strike, we're saying, hold it, no. We're making a claim on the data and saying that stuff, that pot of money, it must be used for the benefit of the workers in this institution, in these factories called universities. And that is a step. I am sure it's a signpost for what's to come. We will find data being used against us, and strikes will, in a sense, at the heart of it being raising the question of who owns and controls data. And that's part of where the fight is at the present moment. So I say to you all, fantastic, wonderful. It's wonderful for the first time in my life to actually be on strike, as opposed to have spent since the age of 13 supporting strikes and going along and putting money in the bucket outside the Harrow Wheel bus garages of the world. So it's wonderful to be here. It's been fantastic. I followed you all from the luxury of sitting on my tuchus at home, watching these films and videos that you've been putting up and retweeting you like crazy. So it's wonderful to be here. Solidarity forever.